Nation, if you remember, and you probably do very fondly, back in early September, I released a video that stated 5 reasons why some people don't necessarily like heavy metal. Reasons why they potentially stay away from the genre or just find the whole idea of heavy metal music and the metal culture as a whole to be a social stigma or a problem. Now there has been quite the response to that video, and I am very thankful for that, and I'm hoping that I was able to shed some light on the heavy metal community to those people who may share or have those views that were presented on that video. But now I figure it's time for me to stop playing devil's advocate so much as far as that's concerned, because I've done overrated rock bands, I've done overrated metal bands and things like that. It's time actually to enlighten some of these people on why some people like heavy metal. So here's another 5 reasons video, only this one's going to be kind of more positive for us. This is 5 reasons why some people love heavy metal. And to me, really, it's kind of hard for me to imagine that people don't love heavy metal, at least in some way, shape, or form. And it's not necessarily because I'm particularly narrow-minded and feel that, if I like it, it means that everybody else in the world should. No, it's just the fact that whenever I'm listening to stuff that's out there that's spoofing and copying and using old riffs, whenever, boy bands of today like Big Time Rush are going to be using Song 2 by Blur for one of their songs, or at least a melody or song structure, and then One Direction on their most recent album, which I was cursed to listen to at work, was sampling spots from both Queen with We Will Rock You and Weezer Say It Ain't So in the same goddamn song. Wow. It really goes back to my video about why the pop and the rap really sucks. There's just a lacking of originality. It's almost like they're running out of ideas, or feel that this kind of a throwback type idea will, 1, be missed by these kids considering they're so young, and 2, it will also give the parents a little bit of something to grasp at. But in reality, what it does for me is that it really showcases that there's not enough originality out there for them to really pump out something that is going to gravitate people toward it. Much like what happened in the late 1990s. The boy and girl group sound, as much as we hated it, it was semi-original for its time frame, and they didn't really have to spoof on too much in order to get it. But that's actually reason number 1. I'm actually touching base on it as I'm talking about this. One of the main reasons why people absolutely love heavy metal music is because of the fact that it's something that's completely different. It's something that's kind of fresh. It's something that constantly feels semi-original, so to speak. It isn't the mainstream. Now, there is mainstream metal bands out there. There are definitely a lot of bands in the metal genre or the subgenre that have kind of crossed over and become a bit of a larger conglomeration. They've been able to get themselves onto radio. They've become some of the biggest bands in the world. Of course, bands like Metallica and Megadeth were part of a huge, huge scene back in the 1980s whenever radio was a huge component to everyday life. So whenever the thrash metal movement really became a huge, huge development in the 1980s, well then the radio stations naturally were able to latch on, considering these are artists that were making money. Metallica, of course, is a band that with the Black Album really, really crossed over and was able to make one of the most commercially successful albums of all time. And so, thusly, they've been able to get more of in the way of radio attention. Now, there have been moments where other bands have been able to cross over, such as Pantera and the like, but really, whenever you consider why people really like this genre and really love this genre, it isn't necessarily just for the stuff that they hear on the radio, the very little that they hear. It's instead for the stuff that they're able to discover on their own. There's a lot of exploration that goes into a love for heavy metal, and that kind of treasure hunt philosophy is something that leads to some of the best and closest bands to the hearts of a listener. They really feel attached to it because it's almost like something that occurred by surprise, or by a surprise recommendation by somebody else. And of course, in today's modern society, reviewers here on YouTube are absolutely tantamount in kind of helping people gravitate towards bands that they probably would have never known existed, or at least they may not have known that they existed, but thought to themselves, well, is it really for me? That's the reason why the music media, and especially reviewers, have such an importance here on YouTube, and have such an importance on the outside world, as getting the music out there to the people. That way they know what's going on, and that way they can sample it to their whimsy, and make their own judgment call. Number 2, heavy metal is a hugely musical, diverse culture, and what you can tell, how you can tell this, and what you can take from this, is the fact that the subgenres are literally in the tens of hundreds. It's ridiculous. There are so many subgenres of heavy metal that you actually question at some points if some of them are actually metal. Yeah, there's actually debates in about metal subgenres as to whether or not they really fit. And you would think that that's something that's happening everywhere, but in this case, it's kind of one that actually needs to happen. You can have everything from chamber music to jazz metal to blues metal. You can have country metal with artists that have included Hank Williams Jr. or Hank Williams III that have kind of bridged the gap a little bit. Literally everybody can really do something that could be considered a little bit metallic in its own frame of mind. In fact, whenever you consider it, mainstream rock artists, if they do something extremely heavy, a lot of the underlings of the rock movements and things like that feel that it's metal. Consider the fact that the emo and screamo of today, many people consider to be heavy metal. In fact, I had a customer the other day that asked what the newest metal releases were, and whenever I told him, which in that case was pretty much the heavier things that we had over in the legitimate metal section, he shook his head no to each and every one of them. He was talking about things such as In Fear and Faith, As I Lay Dying, and things of that nature. He's talking about one particular subsection. He's not talking about the genre as a whole. That's kind of a misnomer. But the great part about it is that that guy has just as much importance to heavy metal as somebody who likes nothing but death, black, thrash, grindcore. And the influences are literally countless. Whenever I talk about grindcore, there's definitely a lot of old punk influence. Whenever you talk about thrash, there's punk influence. Whenever you talk about something that's very groove related, there's a lot of rock and roll influence. Stoner metal has a lot of doom in it. There's just literally many places that you can draw the branches to the tree of metal, and the influences or the saplings or the seedlings, so to speak, literally can come from all around the grassy area that surrounds the tree. Fitting metaphor, not fitting metaphor, either way, this is one reason why a lot of people latch on. There is such a vast amount of creativity in the heavy metal genre under the heavy metal umbrella that literally there is something there for everybody. Even for somebody who might feel that they would only like something that's poppy, there are bands out there that traditionalize a little bit more with a pop styling, only it has a very heavy characteristic to it. I can't tell you the number of people that have become converts to bands such as Lacuna Coil or Nightwish that you would think would never ever touch metal, but they do because they hear bands of this nature. Now, based around those same lines, heavy metal can be both heavy, but it can also be extremely beautiful. It isn't always focused on how fast, how hard, and just how absolutely disgusting the sounds that are made from these bands are that makes it heavy metal. Absolutely not. The beautiful side of this is in both the instrumentalization and, of course, the harmoniousness of vocals and the representation of them as a whole. A band does not necessarily have to be metal and do nothing but play power chords or play thunderous thrash rhythms or growl into a microphone in order for it to be classified as heavy metal. Absolutely not. Whenever you think about it, a band such as Trans-Siberian Orchestra, who has metal ties but in reality is more of a Christmas-themed heavy rock project, is someone that is showcased on heavy metal websites whenever they have releases that come out, including one that I'm going to be talking about here very soon. It's something that's splashed all over these websites because it's very important. They have former members of heavy metal bands such as Savatage and Megadeth in there, and because of that, you really wouldn't traditionally think of them as a heavy metal band. Well, not because of that, but because of the fact that they're playing mainly Christmas music. Heavy metal isn't 100% evil also. I mean, I'm not going to get into the light and dark metal discussion. I'm not going to get into the Christian metal as opposed to the satanic metal discussion either. It's one thing where this is just because a band is playing softer music but is doing so in a very metallic and rhythmic style that has kind of a little allure and a little element to it that has kind of a dark quality, that has a little bit of aggression to it, or either that or has just a little bit of a difference to it. Avant-garde is definitely a huge subgenre of metal, and this is the point that I'm making. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's not metal. For example, a band such as Lacrimosa, which plays a lot of chamber-style music that almost feels operatic in nature, is extremely qualified to be a metal band because the topics and the representation is one that is very harsh. There's a lot of dissonance in it. It has a bit of a haunting quality to it, and it really, even though it is chamber music, it has a very dense atmosphere to it. So sometimes atmosphere is everything also. But that is it. I mean, that's the huge thing right there. There is miles upon miles of creativity. And something that you may think is not metal, but you really just can't put your finger on what it is, may actually, in fact, have a metallic root somewhere within there. Number 4, and this is where we come in. If you're watching this video and you wonder one of the main reasons why people love heavy metal, it's because of people like me, it's because of people like the other members of the reviewing community, it's the fans that are passionate enough to comment on every one of my videos. They're not necessarily just fans of me, they might be, but they are mainly fans of the bands, of heavy metal, and of the genre as a whole. This is a genre that has some of the most passionate fans that are out there. These are fans that can be divided in some regards because of one subtext of fans thinking that something isn't metal, whereas another subtext of fans does. But whenever it all boils down to it, the passion that is there for these bands, the passion that is there for these artists, the passion that is there for these musicians is one thing that is firmly rooted into the ground. It's something that really transcends many, many other things. Whenever you take a look at pop music, you can definitely have somebody that says that I love this person, that person, and this person. But whenever it comes to knowing many things about them, whenever it comes to truly knowing each and every part of their work, whenever it comes to having a die-hard affinity for them to the point where they would potentially sacrifice their livelihood, either that or their safety, in order to see them, where they would go to ridiculous lengths to go see them in concert because this low-key metal band doesn't come anywhere close to them. Whenever they travel for literally, states at a time or hours at a time, or maybe have to take a weekend off from work and take a voyage or a journey to a large metal festival that's maybe overseas in Europe, or maybe like Prague Power that's down in Atlanta. I mean, this is a passionate fan base that is almost beyond comparison to anything else. You see people talking about this stuff literally all the time, but the reason why you don't see it directly is because it's happening on the underground. These people, whenever they see one another, there's just an absolute electricity between them. They want to know what bands that they love. They want to know anything new that they've heard of. They listen for names that they don't recognize. There is definitely a passion and exchange of energy between these people, and that is what makes heavy metal such a viable empire that just seems to be a sleeping giant for so many decades. It's something that's always going to be there because there's always going to be a certain mystique and allure to it. How about number 5? Let's go with the last one. This is a genre that is a very, very positive gateway into music and being a musician. Now, I know a lot of people out there are going to think to themselves, well, why would I want my kid to be a musician? Why would I want my kid to starve himself just for music? Well, that's because music is probably the art form that is the most unexplainable source of joy, happiness, emotion, whatever it may be. Whatever happens to you in your daily life, there is something out there musically that can really, be the background noise for it, be the soundtrack to your daily life. There's something out there for everything. And it's this power that we cannot understand. It's something that we will never be able to root. The reason why it has such an impact on our lives. If you are out there and you can positively claim that you like absolutely no music, if you are out there and you can claim that there is no song, whether it be on the radio, off the radio, or something you just heard in the department store that didn't make your foot tap or didn't make you feel a little bit better or a little bit worse about your life, well then, I don't want to meet you because you sound like one boring-ass motherfucker. Being a musician and having this be an entrance into wanting to be a musician or at least play a musical instrument is such a positive thing because they see this passion, this energy from all of these people that are already performing, these performers, these fantastic musicians that maybe aren't necessarily making that much money, but they love it because that's what they do. They do it because they love it. This is their real outlet. This is their energy. This is their way of being creative. And that creativity is probably one of the largest things that you shouldn't have to worry about. A creative energy like that can only lead to positive things. Now, whenever I say positive things, do I mean that it's all going to be sunshine and fucking Cheerios? Absolutely not. Maybe their creativity is an outlet of a lot of rage. Maybe their creativity is an outlet of a lot of concern. Maybe they don't feel loved enough. Maybe they don't feel hated enough. Maybe they feel like they want to go smoke some bowls and do shit like this. But whatever it may be, heavy metal is definitely an influence as far as musicianship is concerned. That's the reason why you see so many young kids wanting to turn to play the guitar or the drums or bass. It's why you see so much activity on Facebook or on message boards and forums that are asking around for people that can be in part of a band or are looking for people to book bands. It's also part of the reason why metal right now has an overabundance of bands to the point where you really can't talk about all of them. Not to mention, trying to book them all and make them all viable is almost impossible. It really is. I mean, this is a very, very huge genre. It's just not something that you see on the top 20 whenever you go to your local record store. Or it's not something that you see in Walmart. There's a lot of metal discrimination, and that's something that definitely needs to change in this world. And I think, and I hope that this video, if it's able to change just a couple people's minds, if it's able just to maybe get into your head and make you realize that, well, there is a reason why this is such a powerful commodity, well, then I've done my job. Those are 5 reasons right there. And I didn't even have to say words like, it's uber aggressive, it's saying fuck society, it's mean, it's anti-authoritarian, it's this, it's that. I didn't even have to say those things, because there are a lot more reasons to love heavy metal than just the message that's involved. There's a whole lot more to heavy metal than just Satan and guitars. There's a whole hell of a lot more than migraine, headaches, headbanging, and fans that literally seem like they would kill you if you snorted in the wrong direction. There is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous world out there more than just that. Because let's face it, if that's the case, then you'd be watching a, 15-time murderer right now. And I am not a 15-time murderer. Heavy metal is something that has brought me joy for... We're going on the 2nd decade now. It's been a long journey. It's been a long time. And it's something that's going to continue to bring me joy probably for the rest of my life. I invite all of you to the metal journey because I feel that this is a genre that has very open doors. It's something that will change your life. It's something that will make you a better person, even if it means making you a darker person. It's something that wakes you up to the harsh realities around you. It's something that I invite you to. Are you in?